"You don't belong here. Leave before I make you disappear." He said it in Korean, thought she wouldn't understand. 4 guards blocked the exits. 50 people watched. She looked him in the eye, spoke 5 words. His lieutenant dropped to his knees. 2 more guards followed. The room went silent. "What did you say?" She didn't repeat it, because the men who worked for him just recognized something more powerful than fear. And the child she was protecting, he just became heir to everything. She just said 5 words that made his own men turn on him. You think that's the end? That's just the beginning. Subscribe right now, because what happens next will blow your mind. Let's go. Seo-jun's hand slammed on the table. "Kim, Jae, get her out of my sight. Take her to the warehouse." Lieutenant Kim didn't move. Neither did Jae. They stayed on their knees, eyes locked on Min-jun's photo. "Did you hear me?" Seo-jun's voice could have cut glass. "I gave you an order." "We can't." Kim's voice was steady despite his trembling hands. "Boss, the oath. You and Jin Young cut your palms at the shrine when you were 12. We were all there. You swore your blood was his blood. Your families would be one family, forever." "That was children's game." "It was witnessed by your father and Jin Young's father. They made it binding." Jae gestured to Yuna. "Jin Young's son is your nephew, your blood. We can't harm her without harming him." The other guards nodded, Seo-jun's authority cracking with each second of their defiance. Yuna reached into her portfolio. "You want proof?" She pulled out a photograph, its edges worn from handling. She slid it across the table. Seo-jun picked it up with shaking hands. Jin Park, young and alive, holding an ultrasound photo against his chest, his eyes bright with joy. And there, in the background, slightly out of focus but unmistakable, was Seo-jun himself, younger, standing near a car, checking his phone. The date stamp read 5 years and 2 months ago, 3 weeks before Jin died. "He was going to tell you that day." Yuna's voice was heavy with old grief. "He said he finally had something worth fighting for, something worth leaving this world for. He was going to ask you to help him go legitimate, to build something clean for his child." Seo-jun's eyes stayed locked on Jin's face in the photo, on that smile, that hope. "Then someone killed him." Yuna's words were sharp as knives. "I heard them say, 'Eliminate all loose ends.' I didn't know if you ordered it or if you knew, so I disappeared, changed my name, moved 6 times in 5 years, kept Min-jun hidden." Kim spoke carefully. "Boss, if Jin Young's son exists and the oath is real—" "I know what it means." Seo-jun set the photograph down like it burned his fingers. "DNA test, today, private lab, my doctor. If she's lying, we end this." He looked at Yuna, something raw and dangerous in his eyes. "If she's telling the truth, we have bigger problems." "What problems?" Yuna asked. "Jin didn't just die, he was executed. 3 bullets to the back of the head, professional. Someone in my organization ordered it." His eyes bored into her. "And if his son exists, whoever killed Jin will want the boy dead too." Yuna's blood turned to ice. "You have 48 hours. We do the test, I investigate your story, and you stay where I can see you. Kim, take her to the safe house in Lincoln Park, full guard detail. If she tries to run, I won't run, not anymore."
The safe house smelled like leather and gun oil. Yuna sat on the edge of a bed she hadn't asked for, in a penthouse she couldn't escape, staring at her hands. Kim stood by the door, arms crossed, waiting. "Boss wants to know how you met Jin Hyung," Kim said quietly. "Tell me everything." Yuna closed her eyes. The memories came whether she wanted them or not. 6 years ago, her father's international law firm in the Loop, corporate contracts, real estate deals, mostly legitimate. Jin Park had walked in wearing a suit that cost more than her rent, speaking perfect English with Seoul underneath. He needed translation work for property acquisitions, something clean, something legal. "You're different," he'd said during their third meeting, when contracts turned into coffee, then dinner, then late nights where business became something else entirely. "Different how?" "You see me, not the name, not the family, just me." That was the problem. She'd seen him, the man under the reputation, the one who wanted out, who talked about building legitimate businesses that didn't require blood to maintain, who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. They fell in love in stolen moments, secret restaurants outside his territory, late-night calls where he whispered in Korean and she answered in English, an engagement ring she kept hidden because wearing it meant death for them both. 1 more year, Jin had promised, his forehead pressed to hers in her apartment. "Seo-jun is helping me transition everything legitimate, real estate, import companies, clean money. Then we disappear, build something new, together." 1 week before their wedding, Jin's voice on the phone had cracked with terror. "Don't come over tonight. Something's wrong. I need to see Seo-jun first. I need to—" 3 gunshots. Precise, professional. Then silence. Yuna had driven to his apartment anyway, found police tape and blood on expensive carpet, found Seo-jun standing outside, his face stone, refusing to answer her questions, found Jin's mother sobbing in Korean, blaming the black woman who'd distracted his son. At the funeral, Yuna stood in back, invisible in her grief. That's when she heard them, 2 men in dark suits, speaking low in Korean behind her. Boss wants all loose ends eliminated, the translator who worked with Jin, the accountant who handled the transfers, anyone who could talk. Her hand moved to her stomach, still flat, still secret. The positive pregnancy test in her purse suddenly felt like a death sentence. She'd walked out of that funeral and vanished, changed her name, abandoned her apartment, used cash only, moved between cities, raised Jin's son in shadows, always watching her back, always ready to run. Until today. Until Seo-jun found her anyway. "That's how I knew," Yuna told Kim, opening her eyes. "Jin died trying to go legitimate. Someone in your organization killed him for it, and they wanted me dead too." Kim's face had gone pale. "Boss needs to hear this, all of it." "He will, after the DNA test proves I'm telling the truth."
Yuna's apartment was in a building that should have been condemned. Peeling paint, flickering hallway lights, the smell of old cooking oil and desperation. Seo-jun stood outside the door, Kim and 2 guards behind him, holding an envelope with DNA results that would either end this or change everything. He knocked, once, twice. The door opened. Yuna stood there, her face tight with exhaustion and fear. "He's sleeping. Don't wake him." "I need to see him." She didn't move. The results first. Seo-jun handed her the envelope, watched her hands shake as she opened it, read the words that confirmed what the photograph had already whispered. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Min-jun Park was Jin's biological son. Yuna's breath shuddered out, relief, terror, vindication, all of it crashing through her at once. "Now," Seo-jun said quietly, "let me see him." She led him inside. The apartment was smaller than his closet, 1 bedroom, a kitchen with a broken tile, but it was clean, carefully maintained. A child's drawings covered the refrigerator, toy cars lined up on a shelf with military precision. The bedroom door was cracked open, soft light spilled out. Yuna pushed it wider. Min-jun was asleep in a twin bed covered in dinosaur sheets, 4 years old, small for his age, his face peaceful in sleep, 1 hand tucked under his cheek. Seo-jun stopped breathing.
Jin's face, exactly Jin's face, the same bone structure, the same full lips, the same thick lashes that Jin's mother used to say were wasted on a boy. Even in sleep, even at 4 years old, the resemblance was devastating. Then Min-jun stirred, his eyes opened, dark, curious. He saw the strangers in his room and sat up quickly, his head tilting to the side in confusion. That tilt, that exact head tilt Jin used to do when he was thinking, when he was trying to solve a problem. Seo-jun had seen it 1,000 times. "Mommy?" Min-jun's voice was small, uncertain. "It's okay, baby." Yuna moved to his side. "These men are friends. They just needed to see you." "Why?" The boy's eyes moved to Seo-jun, studying him with intelligence beyond his years. Seo-jun couldn't speak. His throat had closed. Behind him, Kim made a sound like he'd been punched, because Kim had known Jin too, had seen that face every day for years. "You look sad," Min-jun said, still watching Seo-jun with those eyes, Jin's eyes. "Did somebody die?" "Yes," Seo-jun wanted to say, "your father, my brother, the best man I ever knew, and I let him die. I failed to protect him, failed to protect you, failed to even know you existed." "Min-jun, go back to sleep," Yuna said softly. "Okay, Mommy." The boy lay back down, already drifting off with the easy sleep of children who still felt safe in the world. Seo-jun walked out of the apartment, made it to the hallway before his back hit the wall. His hands shook, his chest felt like it was caving in. "Boss," Kim started. "I failed him." Seo-jun's voice was raw. "Jin trusted me, made me promise to look after his family if anything happened, and I didn't even know." He couldn't finish, couldn't breathe past the guilt crushing his lungs. Jin's son had been living in poverty, hiding, afraid for 5 years, while Seo-jun built empires on his brother's grave.
The penthouse had 12-foot ceilings and a view of the Chicago skyline that cost more per month than Yuna had earned in a year. Min-jun ran through the rooms with wide eyes, touching furniture like it might disappear. 4 guards stood at various points, watching, always watching. "This is temporary," Yuna said, arms crossed, standing in the living room like a prisoner in a palace. "This is necessary." Seo-jun checked his phone, his tone clipped. "Whoever killed Jin will come for Min-jun once they know he exists. You stay here, under protection, non-negotiable." "Everything with you is non-negotiable." His eyes snapped to her. "Would you prefer your broken apartment, where anyone could kick in the door, where my nephew sleeps 20 feet from a fire escape? Where my son felt safe, where we had a life? You had survival, not life." He gestured to Min-jun, now pressing his face against the window. "He deserves better. He deserves a mother who makes her own choices." The argument was cut short by voices in the hallway. Lieutenant Kim entered with 3 older guards, their faces carved from disapproval. Behind them, younger members of the organization hovered, uncertain. "Boss, we need to talk." The oldest guard, Park, spoke with barely concealed hostility. "The men are talking about her, about the boy." "What about them?" Seo-jun's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Half the organization thinks you're being played, that she's using Jin Hyung's memory to manipulate you, that acknowledging the boy makes you look weak." Park's eyes flicked to Yuna with open disdain. "The other half thinks the blood oath is sacred. They're ready to follow you, but the split is causing problems." Kim stepped forward. "The younger guards remember Jin Hyung. They saw the DNA results. They believe in honoring the oath. And the older guards think you're letting a woman dictate your decisions," Park finished. "It's causing fractures, boss, dangerous ones." Seo-jun's jaw clenched. "Then those who don't respect the oath can leave. Jin's son is family. That's final." Park left with murder in his eyes. The division was clear now, visible, weaponized. Later that night, Yuna found Seo-jun in his study, staring at photographs of Jin. She'd put Min-jun to bed an hour ago, in a room bigger than their entire apartment.
"I'm taking him to school tomorrow," she said. "No. He has friends there, a routine. You can't just lock us away." "I can and I will." Seo-jun stood, towering over her. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. Jin's killer is still out there. My organization is splitting, and you're acting like this is about your freedom." "It is about my freedom. I've been running for 5 years, Seo-jun. I won't trade one prison for another." "This isn't a prison, it's protection." "You don't get to decide that." She stepped closer, anger matching his. "You're going to get yourself killed," he said quietly. "Then that's my choice to make."
3 days in the penthouse, and they were both ready to explode. Seo-jun had blocked Yuna from taking Minjin to the park, from going to the grocery store, from existing anywhere outside these walls. She'd finally had enough. "You can't keep us locked in here forever," Yuna snapped, following him through the penthouse as he prepared to leave for a meeting. "Watch me." He grabbed his jacket, not even looking at her. "Minjin is 4 years old. He needs sunlight, friends, a life that isn't surrounded by armed guards. He needs to stay alive. He needs a parent who isn't a controlling dictator." Her voice rose. "Jin would never—" Seo-jun spun on her, fury blazing. "Don't tell me what Jin would do. You knew him for 2 years. I knew him for 23. He was my brother." "He was my fiancé." The words ripped out of her. "I was supposed to meet him the night he died. Did you know that? Did anyone tell you?" Seo-jun went still, dangerously still. "We were going to have dinner, plan the final wedding details. He called me 20 minutes before." Yuna's voice cracked, 5 years of buried trauma erupting. "He was terrified. I'd never heard him scared before. Never." The room felt like it was shrinking. Seo-jun's hands slowly lowered to his sides. He said, "Don't come to the apartment. Something's wrong. I found something. If anything happens to me, Seo-jun didn't know. Promise me you'll tell him the truth one day. Promise me he'll know I protected him." Tears streamed down her face. "I asked him what he meant. He said he loved me, that he loved our baby. And then—" She couldn't say it, couldn't force the words past her lips. "Then what?" Seo-jun's voice was barely audible. 3 gunshots. I heard them through the phone. Heard him—" She pressed her hand to her mouth, choking on the memory. "I heard him die. I listened to my fiancé take his last breath while I sat in my car 2 miles away screaming his name into a phone that nobody answered." The silence was absolute, suffocating. "He said I didn't know?" Seo-jun's face had gone gray. "He said he protected me?" "His last words were about you." Yuna wiped her face roughly. "About making sure you knew you weren't responsible. That whatever he found, whoever killed him, you weren't part of it." "What did he find?" "I don't know. He died before he could tell me." She met his eyes. "But someone in your organization killed him. Someone close enough to know where he'd be. Someone he trusted enough to let get that close." Seo-jun's world tilted. Jin had discovered something big enough to get him killed, something that required Jin to specifically protect Seo-jun from suspicion, which meant the traitor was someone Jin thought might blame Seo-jun, someone who could manipulate the narrative, someone close to both of them. "I need to make calls," Seo-jun said, his voice hollow. "Now." The storage unit was in Gary, Indiana, an hour outside Chicago, in a facility that looked like it housed forgotten furniture and broken dreams. Yuna led Seo-jun through rows of orange doors, Kim and 2 guards following close behind. "You've had this the whole time?" Seo-jun's voice was tight. "Since 3 days after Jin died." Yuna stopped at Unit 247. "My father rented it. Jin knew about it. Said if anything happened, I should use it." She unlocked the door, rolled it up. The space inside was organized with terrifying precision. Filing boxes lined the walls, a corkboard covered in photographs and red string, binders stacked on a folding table, years of investigation in 10 by 10 feet. Seo-jun stepped inside slowly.
bank statements, photographs, audio equipment. This wasn't grief, this was obsession. I couldn't let it go, Yuna said quietly. Everyone said Jin died in a territorial dispute, but I knew he'd been scared. He'd found something. She pulled out a binder, financial records, routing numbers, shell companies, millions moving through accounts that shouldn't exist. Her finger traced the paper trail. Jin was tracking embezzlement. Someone in your organization was siphoning money, creating fake vendors, inflating construction costs. Her finger traced the paper trail. He wanted to bring you proof, clean evidence you could use without starting a war. Seo-jun's hands shook as he turned pages. 8 million over 3 years, all flowing through accounts connected to legitimate Han businesses. Who? His voice was a blade. Yuna pulled out a photograph. Han Min-woo, Seo-jun's cousin, his financial officer, the man who'd handled the books for a decade. Min-woo was stealing from you. Jin discovered it while transitioning businesses legitimate. He started digging deeper. She opened another box, pulled out a recorder. Jin recorded their last conversation 3 hours before he died. She pressed play. Jin's voice filled the space, alive and doomed. Min-woo Hyung, we need to talk about the West Side accounts. I found discrepancies. 8 million that doesn't match expenses. Min-woo's voice was smooth. The books are clean. I have the routing numbers, the shell companies, everything. Jin's voice hardened. I'm taking this to Seo-jun tomorrow. He needs to know. A pause. Then Min-woo's voice, colder now. You're making a mistake. Seo-jun won't believe you over me. I have proof, audio, documents, everything. Where is it? Somewhere safe, somewhere you'll never find it. The recording ended. 3 hours later, Jin was dead. Seo-jun stood frozen, staring at the recorder. His cousin, his blood, the man he'd trusted with every financial decision for 10 years, had killed Jin, had stolen millions, had played loyal while rotting everything from inside. I'm going to kill him, Seo-jun said quietly. Not yet, Yuna's voice was steel. First, we prove it, your way, so no one questions what happens next.
Seo-jun called the meeting at the warehouse. Every ranking member of the organization. 50 men packed into the space, tension thick enough to choke on. Min-woo stood near the front, confident, unsuspecting. Kim had positioned loyal guards at every exit. We have a traitor, Seo-jun's voice cut through the murmurs. Someone who's been stealing from us. Someone who killed Jin Park to cover it up. The room went silent. Min-woo's face remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. Seo-jun threw the financial records onto the table, bank statements scattered like evidence at a crime scene. $8 million, embezzled over 3 years, shell companies, fake vendors, all traced back to one person. Who? Someone called out. Han Min-woo. Seo-jun's eyes locked on his cousin. My financial officer, my blood. The man Jin discovered was rotting our empire from inside. Min-woo laughed, actually laughed. You're accusing me based on what? Papers this woman gave you? He gestured dismissively toward Yuna, who stood near the door with Min-jun clutched against her side. Jin's whore shows up with a bastard child and suddenly I'm the villain? Jin recorded you. Seo-jun played the audio file. Jin's voice filled the warehouse, condemning Min-woo with his own words, the conversation, the threat, the proof. When it ended, Min-woo's smile had turned into something uglier. So what? Jin was too soft. He was going to destroy everything we built with his legitimate business dreams, clean money, legal operations. He spat the words like curses. He would have made us weak. He would have made us better. Seo-jun said quietly. Better, Min-woo's voice rose. We're not accountants, we're wolves, and Jin was a sheep pretending to have teeth. I did you a favor killing him.
The admission detonated through the room. Gasps, curses, men reaching for weapons. Min-woo pulled his gun first, aimed it directly at Yuna and Min-jun. You want to know why I really killed him? Because that black bitch made him forget who he was, made him forget his duty, and now you're making the same mistake. Everything happened at once. Min-woo's finger tightened on the trigger. Yuna threw herself over Min-jun, shielding him with her body. Guards pulled weapons. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Se-jun moved faster. His gun cleared his holster in a heartbeat. He didn't hesitate, didn't think, didn't let blood ties or family loyalty stop him. He shot his cousin 3 times, center mass, the same way Min-woo had executed Jin. Min-woo dropped, blood spreading across concrete. His eyes found Se-jun's, shocked that it had ended this way, that family hadn't saved him. You chose wrong, Se-jun said, standing over him. Jin was our future. You were our rot. Min-woo died staring at the ceiling, alone despite the 50 witnesses. Se-jun holstered his weapon, turned to where Yuna still covered Min-jun, both of them shaking but alive. This time, he'd protected Jin's family. This time, he hadn't failed.
Min-woo's death changed everything. The organization didn't fracture. It crystallized. Men who doubted Yuna now looked at her with something close to reverence. She'd brought them the truth, exposed the rot, helped their boss honor a blood oath when it would have been easier to ignore it. 3 weeks after the warehouse, Seo-jun stood in a conference room surrounded by lawyers, accountants, and the stack of legal documents Yuna's father had left behind. Jin's original plans for going legitimate. Business structures, corporate frameworks, exit strategies from criminal enterprises into legal operations. This was Jin's vision, Seo-jun told the assembled lieutenants. Clean money, legitimate power, an empire that doesn't require blood to maintain. He looked at each man. We honor him by finishing what he started. Kim nodded. Others followed. The transition began. Yuna worked beside Seo-jun, not behind him. She understood the legal frameworks in ways he never could. Her father's expertise lived in her knowledge of corporate law, international trade, real estate development. She didn't just advise, she decided, negotiated, built. The construction company can absorb most of the workforce, she said one evening, papers spread across the dining table. Min-jun colored quietly nearby. The import business is already 90% legitimate. We just need to close the remaining gray channels. Seo-jun watched her work with something like awe. Jin knew what he was doing when he chose you. He chose me because I didn't let him control me. She met his eyes, just like I won't let you. I know, and for the first time he smiled when he said it. The men noticed the shift. Yuna wasn't their boss's woman, she was their strategist, their bridge to legitimacy. The guards who'd once resented her now sought her advice, asked her opinion, respected her, not because Seo-jun demanded it, but because she'd earned it by bringing honor back to a brotherhood that had lost its way. One morning, Min-jun wandered into Seo-jun's study where he was reviewing contracts. The boy climbed into the chair beside him, small and curious. Uncle Seo-jun? Min-jun's voice was tentative. Seo-jun's hand stilled on the papers. Uncle. The word hit him like a physical blow. Yes? Do you think he'd be happy that we're here with you? Seo-jun looked at this child, Jin's son, Jin's legacy, the boy who should have grown up with his father, but instead had Seo-jun, a poor substitute, a man who'd failed to protect what mattered most. But maybe that was the point. Maybe redemption wasn't about erasing failure, it was about doing better with what remained. Yes, Seo-jun said, pulling Min-jun close. I think he'd be very happy. Something cracked in his chest, something that had been frozen since Jin died. It hurt, but it also felt like breathing for the first time in 5 years. Like healing.
Spring came to Chicago with cherry blossoms and new beginnings. 1 year after Minwoo's death, Se-jun stood at Jin's grave with Yuna beside him and Min-jun between them. The boy was 5 now, taller, still carried his father's smile. The organization's senior members formed a semicircle behind them. Kim, Jae, even the older guards who'd once doubted, they'd come to witness something sacred. Se-jun knelt before the headstone. Jin Park, beloved son, brother, father. The words carved in both English and Korean. Jin Hyung, Se-jun's voice was steady but thick with emotion. I failed you once. Let your killer walk among us. Let your family suffer in hiding. But I make this vow now, witnessed by heaven and earth and the brothers who remain. He pulled Min-jun forward gently. The boy stood solemn, understanding this moment was important, even if he didn't fully grasp why. I swear on my blood and my honor that I will protect your son, guide him, teach him everything you would have taught him. He will know his father's name with pride. He will carry your legacy, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure he never doubts he is loved. Min-jun looked up at Se-jun with those eyes, Jin's eyes. Uncle Se-jun loves me? More than you know. The boy turned to Yuna, his small face serious. Mommy, can Uncle Se-jun be my new dad? The question hung in the spring air. Yuna's breath caught. Se-jun went very still. Is that what you want, baby? Yuna asked softly. I want a dad, and Uncle Se-jun is nice to you. He makes you smile. He says he loved my first dad, so maybe he can be my second dad. Children and their devastating logic, their innocent ability to see through complications to simple truths. Yuna looked at Se-jun, found him watching her with something raw and hopeful in his expression. Somewhere along the way, between the arguments and the danger and the grief, they'd built something real, something that honored Jin rather than betraying him. Yes, she said, if Uncle Se-jun wants to. I want to, if you'll have me. 2 months later, Azure Sky reopened, rebuilt, transformed. A legitimate restaurant now. No backroom deals, no shadows. Just good food and honest business. In the private dining room where everything had begun, Yuna wore a dress the color of spring. Se-jun stood beside her in a perfectly tailored suit. Min-jun was between them in his own miniature suit, holding both their hands. Above the mantel, a portrait of Jin Park watched them over, young, smiling, alive in oil and memory. Is my first dad happy? Min-jun whispered. Yuna looked at the portrait, at Se-jun, at their joined hands, at the future they'd built from ashes and blood oaths and love that refused to die with the man who'd started it all. Yes, baby, he's very happy. They faced their future together. A family born from tragedy, bound by honor, healed by choice. Is my first dad happy? Yes, baby, he's very happy. If that ending hit you in the chest, if you felt something when a mafia boss became a father to his dead brother's son, if you believe redemption is possible even in the darkest places, then smash that like button right now. Your like tells me you want more stories like this. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and comment what you felt, because this story deserves to be talked about.